We are excited to welcome in Jim Callis, the senior writer over at MLB Pipeline, to talk about all things White Sox, prospect, farm system. Hello, Jim.
Hey, glad to be here. How are you doing?
Oh, really glad to be here. Nice Pulp Fiction poster.
Thanks.
Excited to have you. You've been a longtime writer over at MLB.com since 2013. Been a part of the baseball spectrum, I think, since the late 90s. A longtime voice here in Major League Baseball. Excited to talk to you about Colson Montgomery because is this something that you've ever seen before? A guy that has been ranked in the top 10, at least at your publication before, and then completely fall out of the top 100, only to kind of show a little bit of that top 10 flash again at the major league level. This has been a very unique ride for White Sox fans with Colson Montgomery. What have you made of it?
Yeah, no, I mean, it has been unique. I mean, it has been a roller coaster because he's been hard to figure out. I mean, you have the Corey Seager comparisons that go back to high school because he's a 6'4" lefty hitting shortstop. And very good in the lower minors. He was our top prospect in Arizona Fall League in 2023. But he never really hit that great in Double-A, and he had a terrible year, frankly, in Triple-A last year. Came out a little bit at the end, played well for 2 weeks in the Fall League last year. And he comes back this year. He has another terrible year in Triple-A. Winds up go on the development list to work on his swing. He goes back to the Complex League. You don't see this path very often. Then he comes back to Triple-A. He gets hot. They call him up. And he's been on fire, since I got him. I don't quite understand why you're having him learn a new position on the fly in the big leagues. He's played a little third base. That makes no sense. I mean, this isn't a contending team where you're plugging a hole at third base and you're trying to win. That part and it's not no disrespect to Chase Meidroth. He's not a big league long-term shortstop. So I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what's going on with that.
Jim, do you want
Lenny Sosa can stay in the lineup. That part doesn't make sense. But yeah, they have to be happy with the way Colson's hitting. And like I said, I mean, I think he deserves extra credit for playing a position at the big. He's doing this while he's playing a position that he's really not that familiar with.
No, you're preaching to the choir because it is Lenny Sosa. That is the answer to your puzzled nature there. They don't have a lot of bats, and they're trying to get Lenny Sosa in the lineup, and the only position he can kind of play is second. But yeah, it does seem like Chase is a natural fit at second, and we've been surprised at how well Coulson is fit at third base, at shortstop in the time that he's played there. I know DRS is a very small sample size for him in about 12 games, but he's a 3 DRS, and I was just looking, it's very rare that players have 10 plus homers and 3 DRS at the shortstop position. Do you think that this could be his long-term position? I know that there was the back issues in spring training, and there has always been the talk with the frame that he could slide over to third base. Do you think third base is, where he'll play in 2027?
Yeah, I do think it's his long-term position. It's funny, he's hit well. I've had scouts who haven't loved the way he's looked at third. They've liked him actually better at short in the big leagues. I think he's a guy who's capable of playing an average big league shortstop. Coulson is, although you generally want a better than average defender at shortstop. The thing that, and not that prospects are sure things and they're definitely going to make it, they just use their first round pick on a guy who literally some scouts say is the best high school defensive shortstop they've ever seen. So if Billy Carlson hits, Billy Carlson is your shortstop. It's kind of like when you talk about outfielders in the Cubs system. They have guys who can play center field, but they have PCA. So those guys aren't playing center field. So when Billy Carlson gets to the big leagues, Billy Carlson will be a shortstop, and Coulson moves over to third. So long term, I think he is going to be more of a third baseman in Chicago.
Yeah, and just to jump quickly to Carlson, we'll talk a little bit more about the 2025 class. How quick do you think he can move? Because there's talk about swing changes, but there was also a player picked at 10 by the Pirates the year before that also needed some swing changes, and now he's the number one prospect in baseball.
Well,
so with Carlson, how easy is it to maybe see him rise, or
it's not that easy. Yeah, it's not that easy. And the difference is, I don't think Connor Griffin's made swing changes for the Pirates so much as there were teams that just flat out didn't think the swing was going to play against big league pitching. And it's interesting because they drafted him ninth, and the only two teams in the top 9 that would have taken Connor Griffin over Bryce Rayner, who was the other top high school prospect last year's draft, were the Pirates, who did. And actually, the White Sox at 5 liked Griffin more than Rayner. All the other teams liked Rayner more. And you're right. I mean, Billy Carlson. Everybody says he's going to have to do a swing, like swing and set up and make some changes. And like that's kind of alarming when you hear that about a guy who's a top 10 pick. But and I'm not a hitting expert, but talking to the scouts who said that, a lot of scouts say that they feel like it's gonna be a pretty easy fix. It's not like you have to overhaul. They just don't. They think he has a couple bad habits and need to be corrected at the plate. So we'll see. But I mean, realistically, for Billy Carlson, you're talking probably 2029. In terms of like being on an opening day roster, unless the bat comes a lot quicker than people expect.
We do have someone in the chat asking about Braden Montgomery. When you look back at that Crochet haul, is Montgomery the one that sticks out, or do Teel and Meidroth, with their play so far at the major league level, kind of stand out above Braden?
I think Teel and Montgomery are kind of on equal footing. I mean, Meidroth has been fine. Like, again, I think long-term when you're, you get the White Sox back to being a contending club, Meidroth is more of that utility guy. Like Meidroth puts the bat on the ball exceptionally well. There's not really any impact. There's not a ton of defensive value. Like, he's okay. But he's, again, he's probably more of a utility guy in the long run. Especially when you have guys, we talked about Billy Carlson, Caleb Bonemer's coming up too. Like, he's, I think long-term going to be more of a reserve for them. But no, I think Montgomery and Teel are guys who can, be potential all-stars of their position. They're both very offensive-minded players who are very athletic for their positions. I thought, too, they didn't make the trade for this reason, but I do think those guys are both super good makeup guys. And I do think the culture of, the next good White Sox team, I think Kyle Teel and Braden Montgomery are going to be guys who are driving that culture. I think, not that they're in your face, but I just think they're more like a Coulson Montgomery to me is more of a reserved guy. There's nothing wrong with that. But like I said, I think Kyle Teel and Braden Montgomery are going to be kind of the clubhouse culture guys as well as two of the White Sox better players.
And that's fun to see because honestly, Coulson's been a little bit of a goof lately. I think he's having fun, and I think Kyle is infecting him a little bit because Kyle will run out of the box just screaming. He's very much like Jose Abreu in that, so it's been very charming to see. You brought up Bonemer. We did have Jeff Ponce of Baseball America on about a month ago, and he said that Bonemer is the best hitter they've drafted in the past 10 years. I think that's a little bit tough,
crazy.
But the Sox have also been poor at drafting.
Well, if you want to argue potential outcome, maybe. But we're talking about a guy who said, and I like Caleb Bonemer, and he's an A-ball. But if you're talking about what guys were considered at the time they were taken, Tim Anderson, he might be a little bit outside tenure, but he won a batting title. Yoan Moncada was, in the system, was the best prospect in baseball. He didn't pan out like they hoped. You have guys like Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, those guys were top 10 prospects. And this is going to make White Sox fans feel good, but Nick Madrigal and Andrew Vaughn were both top 5 picks. Nick Madrigal had exceptional bat-to-ball skills. So I guess if we're talking about outcome, okay. But if you're saying drafted, those guys were all, or acquired, when they were acquired, considered better prospects than Caleb Bonemer. Now, all that said, Bonemer's off. He's having a very promising season. Top 100 prospect now. He was kind of tough to read as an amateur because there were showcase events he was very good at and showcase events he was less good at. And it kind of depended on when you saw him. The White Sox obviously believed in him. He looks good so far. I think the biggest surprise, I don't think with Billy Carlson, he's going to be the shortstop of the future. I think he's been a lot better defensively at shortstop than people thought he would be. I talked to scouts who thought he was going to be a third baseman pretty quick after entering pro ball, and he's looked pretty good at short. So far, so good. And, again, maybe if we're talking outcome, okay. But Luis Roberts had, I know he's not having a great year this year, but Luis Roberts had a pretty decent career too. Well, I wouldn't go that far. That's a pretty hot take for me. I like Jeff, but that's an extremely hot take.
He said drafted, so he wasn't. I don't think he was including Moncada, Robert, or Eloy. So because those guys were.
They still had 2 top 5 picks. They still had 2 top 5 picks. Again, if we're talking about it, well, I'll ask you. And again, I'm not trying to pick on Jeff. I like Jeff. At this point, would you bet on him over Coulson Montgomery? Right now, I wouldn't.
Well, I think those are two interesting, just because that's kind of the new era with Shirley is the prep picks. We haven't seen, they hadn't drafted a prep pick in the first round since Courtney Hawkins in 2012 when they drafted Coulson. So I mean, it was 9 years. So I think that I would take Coulson just because, again, it's 6'4". And the fact that he has looked decent at shortstop, I would take him over him. But I think Jeff was more talking about some behind the scenes stats that apparently they have access to. Bonemer has similar outputs to like Gunnar Henderson, so I think that's why he said something.
Gotcha.
He did say it a little bit tongue in cheek, so I don't want to be too inflammatory.
Yeah, no, I'm not tripping. I think like outcome, sure, it could turn out that way. They've drafted some pretty highly regarded hitters who at the time people like. I just think, and again, I'm not picking on Jeff this, I think it's easy to go back and say, like, look, was Andrew Vaughn, did that pick work out for the White Sox? No. But there were a lot of teams that would have taken Andrew Vaughn number 3. Like it wasn't like that was a reach, and people thought he was like a safe, he almost went straight to the big leagues. And again, we could debate this. I don't think, and I'm not saying Andrew Vaughn was going to be a superstar. I don't think putting him in the outfield made any sense, and that didn't help his development. So anyway, it's interesting. I wouldn't go that far yet, but Caleb Bonemer's certainly off to a good start.
We all silly like the mayor.